Good morning, Hyderabad. Hope you're all well. And we're just waiting for Helmand to join in. I think it'll just require a few more minutes and they'll be with us. And then we can start the session. And while Helmand is trying to connect, I'll go to my colleague in Lahore and she will start by telling us a little bit about the book that we're reading, which is Bapsi Sidhwa's The Crow Eaters. And after getting her brief introduction to the book, we'll move on into the conversation. So, Hurmat, over to you.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Hyderabad, can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? I think you guys can. Take, all right. So I'm Hurmat and I'm based in Lahore. So the book that we are going to discuss today is The Crow Eaters by Bapsi Sidhwa. I hope you guys all have read the book, you have enjoyed the book. So this book is basically about the Parsi community. It's a story of Freddy Junglewala who makes his family move from their ancestral home and they all move to Lahore where Freddy starts his business. He opens up this general store which becomes a very prosperous business for him. The main character is Freddy, and then there is his wife Putli, and then there is his mother-in-law, who is basically a huge pain in his life, who becomes a huge pain in Freddy's life because she is always having a fight or a banter with Freddy about her life and her eating habits, etc. So this is just a brief introduction of the book. There are many questions which we'll be asking you guys during this session about what you guys understood about the Parsi community, what did you know about them before reading the book, and what do you guys know about them after reading the book. And we'll also be sharing a small video clip from Bapsi Sidhwa's interview where she is talking about her experience of writing this book. So, oh, Helmand is connected with us. Is this Helmand? All right. So yes. Let's move to Hyderabad and okay, let's move to Hyderabad first and we can get ideas from two children over there, two students over there, and they can tell us about what they thought about the book. And then we'll move to Hyderabad and then we can start our conversation in a more inquisitive way. All right, over to you, Hyderabad. Sarvakar, your mic is muted. Please unmute your mic.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm Abdullah from Aslegian School. First of all,
please keep on speaking. We can hear you.
Okay. First of all, after reading book, I'll know the Parsi community. After book, I understand what is Parsi community. In Parsi community, there is the main character Faridun Junglewala. His short name is Faridi. And in Parsi community, the Faridun Junglewala, he come to Lahore and he tried to rise his status. He started a business and ठीक है वो सबसे पहले तो लाहौर आता है, वहाँ पर वो अपना बिजनेस स्टार्ट करता है और उसके बाद वो उसकी इंश्योरेंस करवाता है और वो जानबूझकर वहाँ पर आग लगा देता है। फिर इसके बाद वहाँ और इंश्योरेंस के पैसे वो वसूल करता है। इस तरह से वो उनको चीट करके he grew up and he made a good status in Lahore and Parsi community. It is a short community, but it is a it is a it's a well built community. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. I have a question for you I have a question for you. Oh, okay. I just want to know, thank you for coming back. I just want to know, what did you know about the Parsi community before reading the book? Did you know anything about them?
No,
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know.
Oh, okay. I'm glad that you read this book and now you know about the Parsi community.
Enjoy reading the
So,
book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
sorry.
What did you say?
I was asking you, did you enjoy reading the book?
Yeah.
Lovely. And I just want to know, okay, would you like recommend this book, or would you discuss this book with your friends?
I will.
You will? Okay, wonderful. Thank you for doing that.
Okay.
And thank you for sharing your thoughts.
Okay. Thank you.
Would anyone else from Hyderabad like to come and talk about the book? Anyone from the girls' side? Oh, okay. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Mariam. The Crow Eaters is more about the society of India and Pakistan. The story takes place over 20th century in 20th century Kandas and the Parsi men Faridun Fridi Jungalwala after the moving in a small village Central India Central India is the city of Lahore.
What are they talking about in the novel? No one has such a
That is a very important point that you understood, that the book is situated in partition India and Pakistan, and the book is placed in Lahore, which is a city now in Pakistan. At that time, it was part of larger India. And in the book, as you might have been reading, you might have come across different communities that lived in Lahore. So there is the Hindu community, there is the Parsi community, there is the Muslim community, there is the Sikh community. And as Babsi tells her story through the Crow Eaters, we come across these little snippets of different cultures, different societies that are living in Lahore, right? So yeah, that's a very important point that you picked on. And thank you for sharing that with us. Anything else that you'd like to tell us about the book?
I would like to know, were there any parts in the book that made you laugh? Because I found this book to be really funny. Did anyone else find this book funny?
जिसने हंसी आई वो बात
कोई बात ऐसी हंसी आई थी किताब में नहीं
बस हंसी आई तो जला दिया उसने किताब को दुकान को उसके बाद तो हंसी नहीं आई उसकी अम्मा की बात कैसे सुनते
There was a part where Faridun he wants to do some black magic, do some magic on Jerbano so he can control her. So there's this part where he's trying to cut off her braid. So I found that part to be very funny.
So Hyderabad, what we would like you to do as you explore these books is to not get scared of them. Rather, engage with them as your friends, as a medium through which you can go into different worlds, right? So for example, when you're reading the book, The Crow Eaters, you're going into the world of Babsi Sidhwa, who is a Parsi woman, and she is trying to take you on a journey. She's trying to take you on a journey about her life, what she is seeing, what she's experiencing, right? So don't be scared. It's not a test. It's not an examination. So what we are trying to do is we're trying to have a conversation on the books that we're reading. So language, don't be scared. Oh, how do I phrase this thought in my mind? put it into words, and we'll all come together and we will speak about it so that the thoughts or the words that are in your head turn into a conversation. So anything while you were reading, it's not important that each and every angle of the book is something that you understood. Whatever you understood, whatever made you think, made you laugh, made you cry, made you be like, oh, this is silly, just share those with us. So anything
or maybe whenever you are reading, keep a notebook with yourself and just write down those thoughts. What I do is since I have a personal copy, so I just highlight them. But since you guys are not going to keep these books, you guys can keep a notebook with yourself, maybe a log book during this project, and you guys can write down your thoughts or maybe quotes that you liked while reading the book. And then you can then share them with us when we are doing these sessions.
Anything else that you'd like to share with us?
Minority communities के बारे में बहुत पढ़ा है. Ikra, do you want to share?
Okay, thank you so much for that, Hyderabad. And on that thought, let's move to Helmand. Helmand, I would love to know what you thought about the book and if there are any particular parts that you'd like to share. Hyderabad, could we request you to mute your mics? Thank you. Moving on to Helmand. So Helmand, what did you think about the book? And
yes,
any thoughts?
A student will become and share his information to you.
Lovely.
Yes, in the name of Allah, my name is Ahmed Shah from Helmand, Lashkargah. I want to share my information with about this book. I studied this book. This is very beautiful book. Like the first chapter is the first chapter is Faridun, short name Faridin. That's I studied their information in to Deacon, which works in Deacon. If they can every work, but they get their respect in the end, and also they are very nice both information. We get a lot of information from these books, and we get we get the another things like we can every time we can get every time the information for the book, like they can which work and they can which things for the people like Parsi. They get a lot of information from the these people which they can go years live. They can use the name of classic people. That's my information with this book. First chapter, Mr. Paridon Jungila.
Thank you so much. Tell me this, did you know anything about the Parsi community, or did you know anything about the Parsis before you read the book?
Yes, I get the this information which the novel. What is the novel? The things of novel to Deacon to which person writer of novel in our life. If the writer go off or now, but we now to which person now which person writer the novel.
Okay, and are there any questions that you have that you'd like to ask us maybe about the Parsi community, anything that came to your mind?
He will answer to you.
I think we've lost Helmand, so we could just wait for a few minutes so they get back. And while we get Helmand back, I would like to discuss. Helmand, do we have you back?
Yes, we are online.
Lovely. So yes, we were just saying that before we move further into the conversation, we have a few things that we'd like to share with you. Like Hurmat so aptly put, we had the pleasure of interviewing Babsi Sidhwa, who's the writer of the book, a few years back while she was visiting Pakistan. And we spoke to her about her writing, about different books that she's written, and one of them is The Crow Eaters. And we would love to share what she had to say about writing this book. But before we get on to that, I would love to ask my colleagues here with me about their thoughts on the book. So Hurmat shared with us her opinions on the book. Now I would like to even add another colleague of mine who is connected from Lahore, Sana, and I'd like to ask her two questions, Sana. So one of the most important and basic questions is, why the name The Crow Eaters? What is the connection of the name The Crow Eaters to the Parsi community? And another question that I would love to ask is, like, the book is full of humor, anecdotes, like, slapstick comedy. What does that, what do these elements have to tell us about the Parsi community at large? Like, I mean, is it a reflection of the community itself? And if you could share your thoughts on that.
Thank you so much, Alia. Just wait a moment. Okay. Yeah, thanks so much, Alia, for introducing me, and great to be here, and happy to be sharing my thoughts about the book. The first question was about the term, the Crow Eaters. So for those who might not know, the Crow Eaters was this particular term that was used it was a slightly derogatory term that was used for the Parsis by other communities. And what that meant was that, these people, they talk a lot, they are so loud. And so they used to refer to the Parsi community in that relation. Now, if we talk about for example, the popular culture, we talk about sitcoms, we talk about dramas, Parsis are often depicted that way as well. So there is this type of a stereotype that has been associated with the Parsi community. And, we need to question whether, there are certain prejudices that we hold in ourselves. They get ingrained into us through popular culture, through TV, through media. We need to question those. So, I think that's also one of the reasons why Babsi Sidhwa might have used that particular term to introduce this subject, to introduce, this book, this novel about the Parsi community. This is what you call us. Well, I'm going to tell you about my community now. So, and that is also another perspective about the book. She herself is a Parsi, and she is actually, telling the story of the Parsi community from the inside. So getting to the second question that you were asking about the humor that is part of the book, I believe, she has that sort of, you could say, a grasp on the subject, right? So, I was just thinking, if this book was written by someone like me, who is not from the Parsi community, would it have been true to the subject? Would it have been a true depiction of the Parsi community or not? I think, and there is the question of whether, when we're talking about narrative, whether it is a representation from within the community or from outside. So, you're not othering the subject. You are, showing its true essence. You are showing an illustration of the true essence of a particular community that you're writing about. So in that scenario, I would believe, and, I hope that Babsi Sidhwa has captured all the colors of her community. And I think that would be reflected in the way she has written about the different, aspects of family relations and aspects about, inter-community relations as well. So just, some thoughts about it. I would love to hear more thoughts from our friends from Helmand and Hyderabad on this as well.
So a question arises, right? So the term The Crow Eaters, what does it actually mean? So for our friends in Pakistan, I think it's very easy to translate it into an Urdu word, which would kind of club it into what it is. Like, I'm sure all of us have come across this term, Kavve ka dimag, right? कवे का दिमाग खा के आई है, for somebody who talks a lot, or somebody who is very loud, high-pitched, talkative, noisy. And for my friends in Afghanistan, the term derives from the noise that the crows make. So whenever a bunch of crows get together, their sound is so loud that it kind of submerges all other sounds around them. So it was a term that was used as a derogatory term for the Parsis, because in like we are trying to explain, like our good friend in Hyderabad told us, that the book is placed in the early 1900s in Lahore. So during that time, this is before partition, so a large community of Parsis, Hindus, Sikhs, and Muslims were living in Lahore and were sharing public spaces. So now when they were sharing public spaces, for example, clubs like the Gymkhana or the Lahore Club, so they would, the Punjab Club, they would all meet there. And if there was a group of Parsis that was there in that public space, in parks, in, you know, any places where you would go to just relax with your family, they would overpower that environment because they were just so loud, they would talk so much, they would laugh so much. And as we see in the way she writes the book as well, everything is centered around food. There's always food. Like, I mean, whichever incident she's talking about, whichever party she's trying to talk of, there's always food there. So there is a deep connection. So one of the things that, the first thing that comes to mind as an insider, Babsi, when she's writing this book, she's trying to explain what the community is, what its core values are, but simultaneously, she's taking a derogatory term and giving it a different meaning. She's owning up to being that chattery, energetic, loud community, but she's telling everyone, hey, yes, that is who we are, but we are really proud of it. We bring joy into the world. We bring color into the world. We bring noise, because we're not living in a grave. We're living in a community. There has to be sound. And that sound that you're calling the sound of crackling of crows, for us, it is as melodious as, you know, a nightingale's. So there is that connection that we seem to be drawing. Another thing is like, and that is one of the reasons that we put this book, especially this particular book, and not the Ice Candy Man, which is a fantastic book that she's written as well. But we put this particular book because this book talks about the community. And while we were trying to put a book list together, we really wanted to talk about the different communities that are part of Pakistan. I mean, I don't like using the term minorities because it's like a separatist term. I would rather say the different flavors of Pakistan. And I thought that was something that I would love to share with my friends in Afghanistan, so they get to know Pakistan a little more. And I thought it would be a fantastic idea to share it with our friends across Pakistan, so they also acknowledge it. You know, I mean, there's a large population of Parsis in Karachi, so we tend to engage with them quite frequently. But in further different cities of Pakistan, they're not there that much. It's a very small community, but even though it's a very small community, it has a large impact. For example, if I talk about the contributions of the Parsi community to Pakistan, they are far and large. I mean, there are so many buildings in Karachi, there are so many community spaces, schools that are a contribution of that little community into the country. And I mean, another thing that I think would be worth sharing is that after the birth of Pakistan, there were very few schools in the newly founded country. And one of the very famous schools was the BVS and the Mama Parsi School, which were two schools which were run by the Parsi community, one for the boys and one for the girls. And before partition, both of these schools only catered to the Parsi children. But when the country, when in 1947, when Pakistan came on the world map as an independent country, Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah asked the community to open their doors to the new people who were coming in. And at that point, they were more than willing. They were, on the contrary, happy to open up their spaces for BVS and Mama Parsi, from being just Parsi schools, ended up becoming schools that were providing education for all communities that were in Karachi at that time. And to date, both of these schools are amongst the best schools that we have in our city, providing quality education at very reasonable cost. So the contribution of the Parsis as a community to Pakistan is pretty large. Again, another thing that I think worth mentioning is that the Parsis were heavily involved in shipping. So at the time of partition, the whole shipping industry was run by them. And Pakistan has a port. So their contribution to trade and economics via their shipping was again enormous. So like I said, even though it is a small community, its contribution to society is extremely important and must be understood, appreciated, and I mean, something that one should talk more of. So I thought, okay, that is something that to move to my friends in Helmand and ask them. So what did you think about the book? And what about the book would you like to share with us? So Afghanistan, over to you.
Yes, hello. My name is Bashir Ahmad and I live in Helmand province. I want to talk about the novel. Novel is this book is very good for students because we should learn this book, and this is very important for us for the study this book. We learn some things in novels for this book. How can we find some future in novels? How can we be writers, and how can we be a good teacher, good students, and good how can we have a good life? And because for the novel is very important. You get some things for the novels. How can we get something for the novels? My idea is finished. Thank you for you.
Thank you so much. And on that note, I would love to go to my colleague in Lahore, Hurmat, and ask her to tell us a little about Bapsi. Bapsi Sidwa, the woman who writes the book. And then like I said, we have a little excerpt that we created for you that we would like to share for you to hear from Bapsi Sidwa herself about who she is and why she wrote the novel. So Hurmat, over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm back. So Bapsi Sidwa's life, it's very inspiring. She had polio and she was crippled when she was very young. And if you read her book, The Ice Candy Man, you will actually get to see the event of partition through her eyes. So even if you look up about her on the internet, you will see that she didn't go to a school formally, but she attended college. She went to Kinnaird College, and it's also a very famous college in Lahore. And for the longest time, its principal used to be a Parsi. I studied at Kinnaird, and when I was studying there, all we heard about was this principal, and she was a Parsi, and during her time, the college was excellent. So, like as Alia said, Parsi community, they have a huge contribution in the education system of Pakistan. So on that note, I would like to share my screen and I'll show you an excerpt from Bapsi Sidwa's interview, where she is talking about her experience of writing Crow Eaters and why she chose this subject and her whole journey of getting this book published. So just give me a second.
My brother मुझसे 1 साल छोटे थे और वो मुझे because as a child I had polio and didn't go to school सब मुझे थोड़ा
I need you to pause the video. We can't see the video. We're seeing a blank screen. Yeah, if you could, yeah. Perfect.
Oh, okay. If I'll, okay, all right.
You have to enlarge your screen.
Mm-hmm.
Just the part where she's playing.
Is it visible now?
No, we are seeing your whole screen. You need to make your screen centralized to the video that you're playing.
My brother.
Should I stop sharing?
Okay, so what you need to do is first you need to play the video on your screen.
Oh, okay.
Make it full.
My brother.
And then share your screen.
Okay.
और वो मुझे because as a child
pause the video for now.
Then now I'll share the screen.
Yes.
Thank you guys for waiting.
Yes, now. Perfect.
मुझसे 1 साल छोटे थे और मुझसे 1 साल छोटे थे और वो मुझे because as a child I had polio and didn't go to school सब मुझे थोड़ा retarded समझे till I wrote Croatians. अब इत्तेफाक से ये हुआ मेरे भाई आ रहे थे मैं बिल्कुल प्राइवेसी में चुपचाप क्योंकि मेरा हस्बैंड का फैमिली बिजनेस था मेरा भी फैमिली बिजनेस था तो अगर पता चला किसी को कि मैं किताब लिख रही हूँ तो वो मजाक उड़ा Is it all right if I talk about it? जी so they would jeer के आपसे क्या लिखना है romance लिखेगी मजाक so even my brother didn't know but he vaguely suspected अब एक दिन वो फैज साहब के साथ जहाज में बैठे थे in coming from Pindi to Lahore and Javed Iqbal ने क्या किया था कि after my book was self-published before it was launched he tore off the back and front covers and gave it to all the writers he knew तो उनमें से फैज साहब को भी दी तो Faiz opened this little ragged little book and he showed it to my brother and he said ये कोई पारसी औरत ने लिखी है तो बता सकते हो कौन है so my brother opened the book and he said I think my sister writes and he read a little and he said हाँ this is from my sister so वो दोनों मेरे घर आ गए गुलबाग में I used to live near the Gulbag market at that time and वो उन जमाने में तो खैर एक ही एयर कंडीशन होता था बेडरूम तो फैज साहब वहाँ आए and he said you've written this book I said yes he said it's a very good book but it's a second class book मैं कहा अच्छा जी thank you he said ये जो Narayan और वो अभी who wrote the House for Mr. Biswas उसकी वो किसने लिखी थी Naipaul won the Nobel Prize and Naipaul I used to really revere and he said your book is as good as Narayan and Naipaul and he took a lot of names I said Faiz sahab ये तो blasphemy है ये तो बहुत बड़े writers हैं he said no your book is as good as that so I said that what do you mean by first class writers Shakespeare Milton I said thank you very much putting me in the second class is an honor and then he sat for a long time and we chatted and he became a friend फिर मैं रशिया गई थी वहाँ मिले थे 2-3 दफा and बस वो हालात थे I was always in Lahore and I migrated to Bombay where my husband belonged where the whole Parsi community is based so that was a charming experience for me to be for the first time to be embedded in my community community and to get to know Parsis. And I think a lot of what I learned there went into the Crow Eaters. I realized what a nutty, funny community we are. Not that we are not nutty in Pakistan too, but we are very few.
So thank you so much, Hurmat, for sharing that. And I hope all of you enjoyed listening to her. I mean, I have listened to this particular part of the interview for probably the 10th time, and I enjoy it as much every time. So basically, for my friends in Afghanistan who might have gotten bits and pieces because she kept on switching between Urdu and English, I'll give you a brief summary of what she was talking about. She basically said that as a child, she had polio. And because she had polio, she could not go to school. So she had an informal education at home. And because she had polio and she'd never been to school, everyone around her thought her slightly retarded because, you know, she wasn't like everybody else. She was just different and unique in her way. And she liked to write about what she was thinking from a very young age. So the first book that she wrote was The Crow Eaters. And she said that The Crow Eaters was basically a book about the Parsi community. And she got to understand Parsi community at much, much better when she got married and moved to Bombay because her husband was in Bombay. And in Bombay, because the community is larger, she got to engage with them a lot. Like every evening, she would take her children and go to the Parsi get together, and they would just sit there. And the Parsis, and one of the difference between her and her husband was that Parsis are by and large extremely social people. So they like socializing amongst themselves all the time. And that is what she got to experience because she wasn't experiencing that a lot in Lahore for two particular reasons. One, that she had polio, so her movement was restrained. And the other was that the Parsi community in Lahore was a much smaller community. So I'm assuming because of being a smaller community, their interaction amongst each other was also limited. And in Bombay, because it was a larger community, there were more avenues out there for them to socialize. So they used to go out every day. And I mean, she spoke about it in her interview as well, that every evening I would dress up, I would dress my children, and out we would go. And she would go and be around other Parsis. So she got to experience a large Parsi community when she moved to Bombay. Then unfortunately, her marriage did not work out and she moved back to Pakistan. And when she moved back to Pakistan and when she started writing is when she realized how important that whole journey of going to Bombay and being embedded in her community impacted her. So she wrote this book, and when she wrote this book and she sent it to publishers, nobody was really willing to publish her book because they were like, who would want to read about the Parsi community? It's such a small community or whatever. Anyways, she was able to get it published by this really interesting gentleman. His name is Javed Jabbar, who's quite a big name in Pakistan in the intellectual arena. And he gave it to a lot of people from the intellectual community because he thought this book had a lot of potential. And Faiz Ahmed Faiz, whom she mentions in the book, is one of the greatest writers, poets, thinkers, and political activists that Pakistan has had after its birth. Was very good friends with her brother. And they were coming back in a plane from Lahore to Rawalpindi. And on the way, Faiz Saab had a copy of her book. And because the book did not mention who the writer was, he asked her brother, you know, I think this book is written by a Parsi woman, and would you seem to be knowing as to who has written this book? And when her brother saw the book and read a little of it, he realized that it was his own sister. And he was like, I am not 100% sure, but I think my sister has written this book. And Faiz Saab, after taking off at Rawalpindi, after taking off at Lahore, came to visit her, and he told her that I really liked reading your book, and it's a very good book. And you're a very good writer. And he compared her to some of the great writers from South Asia at that time. And a few of those writers were writers that she really looked upon. So being compared to them was an amazing boost for her, which kind of gave her the confidence that she needed. Because this, you must remember, this is a woman from a Parsi community, has polio, is a divorcee at that moment in time. And so there are so many things that are weighing her down in her society, even though she doesn't talk about it much. But when you try to go in her shoes and think about it from that point, you realize how much baggage she's carrying. But even though she's carrying all this baggage, she does not let it deter her from following her dream. And she sat with Faisab and they discussed her book. And that is how her story and her journey as a writer started. Right after this book, she wrote The Ice Candy Man, which was internationally recognized as one of the classics talking about the partition of India and Pakistan. It's a book that is widely read by people who are trying to understand partition through literature. So, I mean, and in Pakistan now, she is a very well-reputed, very well-recognized, and very well-revered writer. So, I mean, like, what I'm trying to say to all my friends being a part of this conversation today is that we all can be anything we want to be. All we need is a conviction that we are capable, and then life bringing people in our circle of existence who end up being our motivators or being the wind beneath our wings, you know. So all of us coming together on this platform through the book clubs is also a community of people who kind of come together to help each other, to boost each other, and to promote each other, and especially trying to understand who we are and what we can do. So on that note, I'd like to go and ask my friends in Hyderabad that after watching Bapsi's story, what are your thoughts on the book? Did it change in any way, or were you expecting the writer to be very similar to what you experienced? So Hyderabad, over to you. Hyderabad, you'll need to unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, Ali, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. So what I wanted to know is that after listening to Bapsi Sidhwa's interview or her talking about her book, what did you think? Is she what you had imagined, or is she different? Did you imagine while reading the book that she could be somebody who suffered from polio, or somebody who was not, you know, formally educated? Did those thoughts come to your mind? What did you think of her?
पूछना चाहती हैं आपने बैप्सी सिद्धा को ऐसे इमेजिन किया कि उनको पोलियो भी था उनकी एजुकेशन भी स्कूल में नहीं अच्छी एजुकेशन उनको नहीं मिली थी क्या आपने ऐसा इमेजिन किया था क्या सोचा था ऐसा नहीं हाँ पहले हेलो करो हेलो अस्सलाम वालेकुम माय नेम इज इकरा हाँ आवाज हाँ उर्दू में हमने कभी भी इमेजिन नहीं किया था बैप्सी सिद्धा आवाज तो सब चले जाओ खाली आप बात करें ठीक है
Thank you so much. Okay, it doesn't matter. I'm hopeful that when we come to you next month, you will have points that you would want to share with us. Like Hurmat recommended earlier, I would encourage all of you, like I do every time, to keep a journal with you while you're reading the book. And write down your thoughts. Write down passages from the book that you like. And we can talk about those as well. So to be a part of this conversation, it's very simple. All you have to do is read the book, form thoughts, maybe write bits about the book and bring those to us, and we will have a conversation on those. Don't feel overwhelmed, please. Okay, on that note, moving on to our friends in Helmand. So tell me, Helmand, when you were reading this book, did you imagine Bapsi to be the way that she is? And what did you think of the story? Helmand, over to you. Oh God, I think we're having some technical issues with Helmand. So we'll take them back on board in a bit. On the same note, so tell me, both Hurmat and Sana, I'll come to you one after the other. How inspiring is Bapsi's story to you? I mean, as women, as girls living in Lahore, experiencing Lahore, how inspiring is her story? Hurmat, we can go to you first and then we can go to Sana.
So, talking about Bapsi's life, and first I would like to talk about this thing that being a part of this project, I'm really enjoying how we are getting to talk to some of the authors and some of the writers. And you know, when I was young, I used to think that authors, writers, they are these big people who have these big brains, and all they are doing is writing. And whenever they're sitting down and they're writing, they like amazing words are just coming out of their pen or while they're typing. But as I'm growing up and as I'm interacting with people who write and who are these amazing authors like Bapsi Sidhwa, and how we interacted with Sabiha Rahman and all these other writers, all I'm seeing is that they write whatever they are experiencing and whatever they are feeling. And I think, and also they read a lot. I also want to, I think I want to be a writer, and sometimes whenever I write, I'm like, no, this is not good writing and no one else will read it. But sometimes whenever I send my writing to a friend, or if I post it somewhere on social media, I always get this kind of feedback. Oh, I also think like that. Oh, I also experience the same things. So I think at the end of the day, we as human beings, we all experience same things more or less in the same way. And as you were asking about living in Lahore, I think, and also since Bapsi is also from the same institute from where I studied, I could see how that place inculcated the culture of reading and writing in her. Because Kinnaird College, it's also a century-old college. It was established during the British Raj, and most of its faculty, there used to be Anglo-Indians and Parsis, and also and Christians who were really, really well-read and well-spoken and well-educated. And I could see how that place made her the writer that she is today. And I also think that this whole city, the kind of culture it used to have during 60s and 70s, it also had this literary air to it, which made her this amazing writer that she is today. So, yeah.
And we were going to have some echo issues, but yeah, it's resolved. So yeah, I definitely share the same thoughts that Hurmat shared about the culture of Lahore. So for someone, you know, for example, in my case, I am from the same college as well. I went to Kinnaird College as well. So, you know, I do share the same ideas about Kinnaird being this prestigious institution, which inculcates this desire to read, to write, to contribute to society in whatever way you can. It doesn't necessarily have to be through literature. Whatever skills you have, you know, use them to contribute to society, to bring about a change. And also, you know, regarding missionary schools, for example. So there is a huge contribution for Pakistan. So missionary schools, I remember during my time and previously, since, you know, before partition, missionary schools have been, you know, these prestigious institutions that have brought leaders future leaders into the main spectrum of society. And in that sense, you know, I think our cities, our urban, you know, systems have contributed a lot towards the development of the infrastructure, towards the development of the literature, towards the development of arts and culture within the history of Pakistan. And it's the same for, you know, several other cities, you know, I do believe in Afghanistan as well, and in that sort of a history. And talking about Bapsi Sidhwa's, you know, being an inspiration, I was just listening to the excerpt, and, you know, I do believe the first step towards, you know, towards doing something that you really want to do, you really want to pursue, you're passionate about, it's the hardest. So for example, in my case, when I was making this documentary project, you know, I had some doubts. I had some, you know, I was afraid of taking that first step. But, you know, just listening to her, how she wrote the manuscript and how she self-published the manuscript as well, the initial book, Row Eaters, you know, there weren't a lot of publishers that were interested in, you know, in publishing about the Parsi community, or that, you know, even the English literature, there weren't a lot of books that were being published around that time in the 1970s in English in Pakistan. So people weren't interested in that. But then, you know, she wasn't afraid. She didn't give up, and she wrote it, she published it, and, you know, and then it went on from there to this incredible career that she has had over the course of the past eras. And so in that sense, I think it was very motivating to hear, you know, her sitting with someone like Faz and getting his feedback from Faz, Ahmed Faz, and, you know, and getting, she, you know, Faz was an inspiration to her, and then Bapsi became an inspiration to so many other people like us. And on that note, I would like to, you know, I would like to ask people from Hyderabad and Helmand as well, you know, hearing her story and listening to how, you know, she has written and contributed towards the representation of Parsi community. I would love to hear if any of you would like to write about your community, or what kind of stories would you like to tell about your community if you were to write a book, or if you were to make a movie, or do something to represent your community. So yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Helmand, Hyderabad, who would like to take this? We're running out of time, so we'll just have to be slightly fast. I'm sorry for pushing, but we can go to Hyderabad first because I think they're ready, and we can take the same thought to Helmand. Putting the question of Sana out here again, if you were to write about anything, what would it be and why?
If I write some, I will write about the community, because from इस बुक से जो मैं देखा है, उस बुक के हिसाब से जो कम्युनिटी होती है उसके about a caste. Some they are like it is from Parsi community. So I will, if I write, I will write about Muslims or the behavior of Muslim to other communities. If I write, I will write about it. Thank you.
So just before you run away, I have a question. So, so you told me that you're gonna write. So am I expecting a piece of your writing next time that we meet? Are you gonna write something and share it with us in the next session?
I'll try.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm gonna hold you on that, and next time when we meet, I'm gonna start the session by you reading whatever it is that you have written. It could be a paragraph, it could be a few lines, it could be anything about how you were feeling, what the day was like. It doesn't have to be deep, you know. Just start, and then we can take it into depth.
I will.
All right.
Okay, I'll try.
Done. Thank you so much for that. Okay, on that thought, let's move to Helmand. So Helmand, the question is, if you were to write anything, keeping in mind the aspirations and inspirations that we get from Babsi's book, what would you write about and why?
Yes, a student will be answer to your question.
All right.
Yes, again, Ahmad Shah, I want to share my information with the first Babsi. Babsi was born in Pakistan, Karachi, and they brought and she brought Lahore. She was wedding on the 75. They have with the 3 children, and also this is information Miss Babsi, and also they have they write the writing of she is very beautiful, and they have funny and also every kind of writing. They are very nice writing, and I enjoyed from this book. Thank you so much.
What will you, if you could write anything, what would you write?
Yes, I learned the kind of writing from she. That's kind of writing is very beautiful. I want to writing the kind of this book.
All right, wonderful. So next time when you come for the session, are you going to bring us a little something that you have written?
Yes.
Will you write something and share it with us next time?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And next session, he will be write a short think about this, and he will be share with us, inshallah.
Wonderful. So for our next session between Hyderabad and Helmand, we're making a note that we're going to start the session by listening to the writings of the students from both Helmand and Hyderabad, and then we're going to move on to our book.
Yes, okay, inshallah.
Apologies for that. So thank you everyone for being a wonderful audience. We love spending this time with you and exchanging thoughts. I can see such a massive improvement and change in the way we converse, in a belief that our thoughts are worth sharing, because I truly do believe that any thought, any idea is worth sharing, and we must do so. So that is the whole idea: reading, talking, and having wonderful conversations that make us think differently. On that note, I'm going to say Khudafis from Karachi and ask all of you to continue reading, enjoying your lives, sharing your thoughts with your friends, if possible, writing those thoughts and sharing them with us. You can write to us. You can email us your thoughts, and we would love to read and give you our comments on that. So that is also something out there for you to dwell over. And on that note, I'm going to sign out and see you next month.
See you next session, inshallah. Bye-bye.
Bye, Afghanistan.